Hello, it's Friday. Welcome to another edition of the Zogby Report, real and unscripted. You know the drill. Jeremy and I go through some hot issues of the week, and there are hot issues and people of this week, and so we're going to try to tackle some of them. Jer, how you doing?
I'm very well. You?
I'm okay. I'm fine, thanks. Okay, so the elephant in the room, of course, is Donald Trump and um, the interview, the town hall meeting in New Hampshire on CNN. That's very controversial on both sides. Some thought that it was part of a witch hunt against Donald Trump. Others are ready to launch a witch hunt against CNN for even airing it. Um, there are criticisms of not only the network itself, but also placing a younger, and I'm putting these in quotes, more inexperienced reporter face to face with a very savvy guy like Donald Trump. But in any event, I think by now anybody who's watching this knows what was said and how it was said. But what was your sense? Did Donald Trump help himself or hurt himself? And we're going to ask the question just to prepare you. Did CNN help itself and hurt itself? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no surprise. I have a very different take on things. And so
Mhm.
the two dynamics. So while most people in the Coliseum right now are throwing tomatoes at each other and accusing each other, I have to look at it from a distance. And so, I mean, the first dynamic that I'm going to infuse into all of this is where is Biden in all of this? I mean, if you look over the last week, the a lot of the polls were showing him slipping. Rasmussen did over a week or two ago have Biden's approval somewhere between 48 and 51%, which is a very interesting twist. While all of the other institutions, outfits, mainly from the left or from a liberal standpoint, have Biden in terms of his approval rating sinking into the high 30s, low 40s. And so I think it tends to be more there, high 30s, low 40s. So Biden isn't really in a good spot right now. And I almost think that there may be a possibility of some momentum in unseating Biden. Okay, I mean, I just want to throw that out there. I'm not going to make any predictions, but you know, put that aside now, and CNN and Trump are the winners from this. I mean, CNN got the ratings that it's been craving for. The ratings went through the roof. They showcased Donald Trump. Donald Trump's base is excited by all of this. The nasty thing about it is it pits voters against each other in an even worse way. I think liberals are drawn to accuse and attack and say, look at what a awful person the Republicans have as their front runner. This is somebody who's a conspirator, who has questioning election integrity, and the effect that it has is what is the liberal ground game? How do liberals and Democrats present themselves as a better alternative other than by pointing the finger? So the division gets stronger. Trump's camp beats their chest harder. The Democratic camp beat their chest harder to say never again. We can't have a face off between Biden and Trump. And I'm watching for a fear among Democrats that Trump is on the loose and at this point may be able to beat Biden in an election.
All right, so I've got a different take, and that's why we do this. So, for starters, CNN's numbers were higher than their normal numbers these days in that time slot, 9 o'clock. About 3.1 million people watched the debate. Generally, they haven't even been hitting a million during that time slot. On the other hand, you go back to 2016 and the presidential debates. CNN had 24 million watching the presidential debates, the GOP presidential debates uh, back then. So that's by way of some context. Um, Trump, no doubt, helped himself with his base. And that's clear. He gave them not only the content that they wanted to hear, but also the tone. The baddest guy in town, the one who defies institutions that they don't trust, and the guy who can eat anybody's lunch, face to face. In that sense, then, that's what his audience, both in that room and on the television, wanted to hear, and he gave it to them. Unrepentant, unapologetic in every way. I don't see, and there's no evidence yet, because there hasn't been any polling published yet. In fact, we have a poll field. We'll have to see what it yields after the debate. But my gut tells me that when it comes to appealing beyond his base, suburban moms, women in general, I think he's got a real problem, at least for now. I think what he and the Republicans are doing is counting on President Biden to do the heavy lift by alienating suburban women, suburban moms in particular, this time around. And that's how Trump picks up his margin of victory. Or Trump goes by the standard playbook, which is solidify your base now and during the primaries, and then reach to the middle. We'll have to see. But it's a funny way to wait to reach out to the middle, because he gave a lot of talking points to his enemies. And I can see a lot of those not only in ads, but quite frankly, I can see a lot of those talking points in the hands of current and future prosecutors as well. He insulted E. Jean Carroll again. She may very well, in fact, she's announced that she probably will go after him in a third defamation lawsuit. And then the same holds true with what he said about the 2020 stolen elections, which we've already discovered is not only a dead issue, but an alienating issue among independents. Let's go to CNN. Yeah, I think CNN won. I think it won. I mean, to be frank, this is going to sound counterintuitive to on the basis of what I just said, but Donald Trump is out there. Donald Trump is far ahead right now in the race for the GOP nomination. A new poll out today has him ahead of DeSantis, won 60% of the vote last year, ahead by 8 points in their own state of Florida. So I think that CNN recognized Donald Trump's out there. Donald Trump is doing a town meeting. This is in the public interest for Americans to hear, who he is, what he said, whether you love him or you hate him, or somewhere in between. I will take issue. I think that Caitlin Collins is a very smart woman, very smart reporter. She's a very good White House reporter and clearly a rising star. But somehow it was asymmetrical. And that could be male or female. I think what you do when you face a Donald Trump is you take Chris Wallace. You take somebody, a John King, or maybe somebody more moderate and viewed as more moderate, maybe even someone not from CNN, but someone with the age and the gravitas, so that doesn't become an asymmetrical issue. Nonetheless, I do think that Caitlin Collins held her own and did quite well. Final analysis for me, I don't think any net gain in the polls for Donald Trump. I think he solidified his base, but he may have even alienated some elements of independents and suburbanites.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I think we agree on a lot. I think, well, look, the fact this early in the race, I don't know that you're going to be able to reach out with such a broad net and move the middle, but more or less just focus on your base and consolidate and ensure that you're still the presumable front runner, which he is. He was going into the town hall, and he is now, and so he's got to keep up that momentum. But you know, I just, the only other thing I can say about it is just through the lens of this being a spectacle. You know, what does it say about our culture? What does it say about the way that the trend in how we're engaging towards politics? It truly brings out, for both MAGA Republicans and for your mainstream Democrats, I would say the darker angels as opposed to the light angels. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of accusation and pointing the finger. And at the end of the day, you know, neither camp walks home thinking, how can we perform better? They're beating their chest, and they're mobilized for war, and that's the effect that it has. And to me, that's the real focal point here in this town hall. Not so much the other stuff that we're talking, although it is important. It's just another layer that I think I like to analyze it through.
You know, in this instance, not unlike the Charlottesville incident years ago, early in the Trump presidency, I don't see the symmetry here. Yeah, there are certainly problems within the Democratic Party. I'm not terribly enamored with their closing out free speech and with really pounding, you know, the establishment of the Democratic Party, pounding progressives and dissenters within the party. By the same token, I don't think, while it's wrong, I don't think you can equate that with a man who has just been convicted of sexual battery, a man who is still insulting the victim, no more alleged victim, but the victim. She won that lawsuit. He was convicted.
Yeah.
I don't think you can compare with someone who praises the January 6th insurrectionists and promises to pardon most of them as good people, and call that the mainstream, or suggest that in some way it's not fair for Democrats or the other side to come back with as much heat. This guy, this former president, is setting that worst angels of our nature tone in American politics, and that in itself should be troubling to all of us.
Well, then I think in that light, then the reaction in 2016, the refusal of his election victory from Democrats, is justified. It's morally justified when you're coming at it from that angle. And then to take it further, it carries the message that we Democrats have the high moral ground. We don't have to really improve ourselves. Look at this train wreck. Well, guess what? A lot of the country likes the train wreck, for better or for worse. What can you do better? What's your vision for a better country that overcomes the division? The division cannot work one way. It can't just be coming from MAGA, Republicans. There's two that are dancing in this dynamic, and I just can't help but notice in all the chatter post town hall analysis that nothing comes out of it that Democrats can say we need to build a better vision for this country, as opposed to just saying look at the extremism That's the focal point of our problem going into the future.
Okay, so enough of Trump. Um, so I think one of the things we learned this week is that, at least I learned this week, is I don't think that we're going to default on our debts. I don't think that the government is going to be shut down. Um, and the message, the reason I'm getting that message is that there appears to be an agreement that the debt limit needs to be extended. Uh, I think we got that message loud and clear. Now, the worry is, how do we get there? We raise the debt limit. On the other hand, Republicans, whatever you may think, wisely or unwisely, say there have to be cuts. That's where the disagreement is. I think I just heard in the last 24 hours that staff, on the staff level at least, they're talking about cuts, both sides. However, where the Democrats and where the White House in particular won't budge is cuts to the armed services, cuts to social programs like WIC and SNAP, cuts in food stamps, more cuts in stamps. Those are things that truly benefit people that they're dependent upon. So where will the cuts be? But believe it or not, there was some progress this week. Now, what do we cut? Or don't you agree that there was progress this week?
Well, I don't know what we cut. I mean, I've kind of just accepted that. I don't think any politician, when it comes down to it, Democrat or Republican, when we're $33 trillion in debt and we face a looming banking crisis and the interest rates are going up, that signals eventually things are going to get out of control like they did in 2008. What politician is going to go through with austerity? None of them are. I mean, it'll get nasty in terms of, do you cut the Democratic programs or the Republican programs? But I think when all is said and done, with those forces looming in the background, I don't think any real cuts are going to take place. I don't think so.
Well, Kevin McCarthy has drawn a line in the sand. Interestingly, Mitch McConnell, John Thune, John Cornyn, the leaders in the Republican minority in the Senate, have been relatively quiet. The point person on the cuts has been Kevin McCarthy, and Kevin McCarthy has problems of his own, just reining in his own very slim majority. Right now, he may lose one, in the form of George Santos. There's a lot of pressure there to call another election, especially after Santos was indicted. Like you, I don't know what gets cut. I certainly don't know what gets cut during an election year. What I do know is that these programs that McCarthy are suggesting, which are quote unquote Democratic programs, those are the kinds of things that are going to bring a bigger vote out, on behalf of Democrats. So, all right, let's talk immigration for a while. That it deserves certainly a whole lot more time. But yesterday, so today's Friday, yesterday was pivotal because the Trump era limitations on immigration have been lifted. And so now the issue is, on one hand, there's real misinformation out there. There are many people, by the tens of thousands, trying to come into the U.S. because they are hearing misinformation and seeing it via social media, that if they make it in, then they can't be deported. Well, that's not true. On the other hand, processing tens of thousands of people, processing them all at once, deciding who's going to be deported and who's not going to be deported, is a mess. Biden administration says it's been gearing up for this day and this time for over a year. Republicans are saying it is just a sign of another mess that is made out of the immigration policy. What do you think? And is this going to be a big issue in
Oh yeah, I mean
2024?
the immigration issue is huge. I mean, it's always been going back to our tracking in the summer of last year, where we polled independents and moderate voters. Immigration was like a tier 2 issue. So inflation tier 1. I say tier 1 because it had double the amount of percentage in terms of voters saying inflation was the top issue, double the amount over the number 2 issue, abortion, and then just shy of abortion was immigration and crime and safety. And actually, we just got our polling data in right now, and I asked a question. The question is, which of the following views comes closer to your own regarding the situation at the southern border? One statement says the situation at the border is a genuine crisis that impacts all Americans and can spiral out of control if not dealt with. And the other statement, B, the situation at the border is overblown for political gain. So 66% of voters say that it is a genuine crisis that can spiral out of control. 51% of Democrats say that. 84% of Republicans agree with that, and 63% of independent voters. So the fact is that there's some real intensity there in terms of this being an issue. I didn't want to get into the Biden versus Trump, who is it?
Yeah.
I wanted to see whether Americans really see this as a major issue. And what we're seeing across party is that this is a major problem. That's the perception out there. So I think that proves your point that this is going to be a wedge issue or a tough issue, rather.
I wonder if it'll get to the point where it's a driving issue. One of those issues that makes me pull the lever one way or another. I suspect that abortion will still be the top issue. Well, inflation and the economy, the top issue. I'm not so sure that either party has the creds on the economy. And so, the abortion issue, because that's something that voters, pro or con, feel that their vote counts. And it could be the ultimate driver wedge issue. Yeah. That's all I've got for this week. I think we've covered what there is to be covered.
Yeah, I don't want to keep going. I feel like this has been pretty in-depth. So we've got more stuff to talk about next week, though.
Okay, good. So we'll talk next week.